My 5-year-old called a random number, sobbing. My mommy collapsed when I fainted. She had no idea she just called the billionaire father who never knew she existed. The phone rang at 11:47 p.m. Holden Cross stared at the unknown Portland number flashing across his screen. He almost didn't answer. Almost sent it to voicemail like he did with most calls that came through after business hours. But something made him swipe. Hello? What came through the speaker stopped his heart. Crying. A child. Sobbing so hard she could barely breathe. Please, please, I need help. My mommy won't wake up. Holden straightened immediately, his entire body going rigid. Who is this? Where are you? There's blood. On the floor. I tried to shake her, but she won't open her eyes. I don't know what to do. Please come. Please, sweetheart, slow down. Tell me your name. Faye. My name is Faye. Okay, Faye, you're doing great. Whose phone is this? Where did you get this number? It's my mama's phone. I saw your name. It had a star. Are you Holden? The world tilted. He knew only one person who would have his personal number saved under his first name. Only one person who disappeared from his life 5 years ago without explanation, without warning, without a trace. Autumn Vale. Yes, I'm Holden. Is your mom's name Autumn? Yes. You know her? His voice came out steady, even though his hands were shaking. I do. Faye, I need you to tell me exactly where you are. I don't know the street name. We live above the laundry place, the one with a blue sign. There's a red door on the side. He was already moving, grabbing his coat, his keys, his phone pressed between his shoulder and his ear. Stay on the phone with me, okay? Don't hang up. I'm coming right now. You promise? I promise. Have you ever gotten a phone call that flipped your entire world upside down? A call that revealed something you never saw coming? Maybe it was news about someone you loved. Maybe it was a truth that had been hiding in plain sight. This is one of those stories, and I'm telling you right now, if you stay with me until the end, you're going to understand why sometimes the wrong number is exactly the right one. This isn't just about a terrified little girl calling a stranger in the middle of the night. This is about a mother who made an impossible choice to protect the people she loved. This is about a man who never got the chance to choose at all. And this is about a secret that was 5 years in the making, about to shatter everything. What happens when a 5-year-old accidentally calls the one person her mother spent half a decade trying to keep her from? Stay with me, because this story is going to break your heart and then put it back together in ways you won't see coming. If you're ready for a story about second chances, impossible choices, and the kind of love that refuses to stay buried, do me a favor right now. Hit that like button, and trust me, you're going to want to subscribe to this channel, because stories like this don't just entertain you. They stay with you long after they're over. Now let me take you back to where it all started, not with the phone call, but with the moment that made that call necessary. It started with the sound of glass breaking. In the small apartment above Riverside Coin Laundry on Hawthorne Street in Southeast Portland, Autumn Vale stood at the bathroom sink, gripping the edge of the counter. Her vision blurred. The room tilted sharply to the left. She'd felt off all day, lightheaded, weak, but she'd pushed through like she always did. 2 freelance design deadlines, a full day of client revisions, dinner for Faye, bath time, bedtime stories. She hadn't eaten since breakfast. A piece of toast, black coffee. Now her body was done asking nicely. The glass she'd been holding slipped from her fingers and shattered against the tile floor. She reached for the sink again, but her knees buckled. She fell hard. Her temple cracked against the edge of the porcelain bathtub. Pain exploded white and hot across her skull. Then everything went dark. In the living room, 5-year-old Faye sat on the floor in her pajamas, watching cartoons on the old television her mom had bought secondhand. She was coloring in her dinosaur book, humming along to the theme song, when she heard the crash. She looked up. Mama. No answer. Faye set down her crayon and stood. Her small feet padded across the worn carpet toward the bathroom. Mama, are you okay? Still nothing. She pushed the door open wider and froze. Her mother lay on the floor, eyes closed. One arm stretched out across the broken glass. Blood, dark and red, pooling slowly beneath her head. Faye's stuffed lamb dropped from her hand. For a moment, she couldn't move, couldn't think. Her chest felt tight. Her eyes burned, but she didn't scream. She didn't panic. She remembered what her mama had told her, over and over, every time they practiced. If something bad ever happens and mama can't help you, you find my phone, you call someone, you ask for help. You're brave, baby. You can do it. Faye turned and ran to the kitchen. She dragged a chair across the floor to the counter and climbed up on shaking legs. Her mother's phone sat next to the microwave, plugged into the charger. She grabbed it with both hands. The screen lit up. No password. Mama never locked it when they were home. Faye's heart pounded in her chest as she opened the contacts. Her finger scrolled down the list. She didn't know most of the names. Aunt Jessa lived far away in California. Miss Trina from daycare might not answer this late. Then she saw it, a name at the very top of the favorites list, a little gold star next to it. Holden. She didn't know who Holden was, but the star meant he was important. Mama only put stars next to important things. Faye pressed the name with her tiny finger and lifted the phone to her ear. It rang once, twice. Then a man's voice came through, deep, calm. Hello? Faye's throat closed up. She almost hung up, but then she looked back toward the bathroom, toward her mama on the floor, and she found her voice. Holden Cross had been standing at the floor-to-ceiling window of his penthouse overlooking the Willamette River when the call came through. The city glittered below him, cold, distant, beautiful in a way that felt empty. He'd been thinking about her. He hated that he still did that. 5 years later, and Autumn Vale still lived in the corners of his mind. The way she used to organize his schedule with color-coded notes. The way she'd leave coffee on his desk during late nights without saying a word. The way she'd looked at him the last time he saw her, like she wanted to say something but couldn't. And then she was gone. No resignation letter, no forwarding address, just gone. He'd searched for her, hired investigators, called every contact they had in common. Nothing. It was like she'd vanished into thin air. Eventually, he'd forced himself to stop looking, told himself she'd made her choice, that maybe he'd imagined the connection between them. But now a little girl was on the phone, crying, terrified, calling from Autumn's number. He didn't hesitate. Faye, listen to me very carefully. I need you to stay calm, okay? Can you do that for me? Okay. Her voice was so small, so scared. Good girl. Is your mama breathing? I think so. Her chest is moving a little bit. Relief flooded through him. That's good. That's really good. Now I need you to do something for me. Can you find a towel? A clean one? Yes. He heard her little feet running. A drawer opening. I got one. Perfect. I want you to fold it up and put it under your mama's head very gently. Just like a pillow. Can you do that? Uh-huh. He heard her breathing. Heard the soft sounds of her moving carefully. I did it. You're doing amazing, Faye. I'm so proud of you. Now tell me again where you live. Above the laundry place. It has a blue sign. We're in apartment 2C. Holden was already in the elevator. The doors closed as he pressed the parking garage button. Is there a street name? Anything you remember? Mama says we live on Hawthorne, near the place with the good donuts. That was enough. He knew the area. Knew exactly which laundry she meant. I'm in my car right now, Faye. I'm coming as fast as I can. You stay on the phone with me, okay? Don't hang up. Okay. Tell me something. What's your favorite color? Purple. Purple's a great color. What about animals? You like animals? I love dinosaurs. Dinosaurs are awesome. Which one's your favorite? The T-Rex. Because it's strong. Holden's throat tightened. He pulled out of the parking garage and onto the street. Rain misted against the windshield. The city blurred past him as he pushed the speed limit. You're strong too, Faye. You know that? I am. Absolutely. You're helping your mama right now. That's the bravest thing in the world. She was quiet for a moment. Then, in a voice so soft he almost missed it, she said, I'm scared. I know, sweetheart, but I'm almost there. Just a few more minutes. He ran 2 red lights. Took a corner too fast. Didn't care. 12 minutes after the call started, he pulled up in front of a narrow brick building, with peeling paint and a faded blue sign that read, Riverside Coin Laundry. A metal staircase clung to the side of the building. At the top, a red door hung slightly crooked on its hinges. Holden killed the engine and took the stairs 3 at a time. The door to apartment 2C was cracked open. Just an inch. He knocked gently. "Faye, it's Holden. I'm here." The door swung open, and there she was, a tiny girl with dark curls falling past her shoulders, big hazel eyes rimmed red from crying, barefoot. One of her socks had fallen off. She clutched the phone in one hand and a stuffed lamb in the other. She looked up at him. "You came..." Holden's chest cracked wide open. "I did." She stepped aside, and he entered the apartment. It was small, neat, the kind of place that was clearly loved despite its age. A pile of folded laundry sat on the couch. Children's drawings covered the refrigerator. A pot of soup still sat on the stove, long since gone cold. But Holden didn't focus on any of that. He moved straight to the bathroom. Autumn lay on her side on the tile floor, a small towel folded carefully beneath her head. Her face was pale, too pale. Blood had dried in a thin trail from her temple, down to her jaw. Her breathing was shallow but steady. Holden dropped to his knees beside her. His hands shook as he gently brushed her hair back from her face. He checked her pulse, checked the wound. It wasn't deep, but head injuries were unpredictable. "Autumn," he said softly. "Can you hear me?" Nothing. He turned to Faye, who stood in the doorway watching him with wide, frightened eyes. "You did everything right, Faye. Your mom is going to be okay, but we need to get her to a hospital." Faye nodded quickly. Holden slid his arms beneath Autumn's shoulders and knees and lifted her carefully. She was lighter than he remembered. Too light, like she'd been stretching meals, skipping her own so Faye could eat. His jaw tightened. "Faye, grab your coat, okay? And your shoes." She ran to the closet and pulled out a pink puffer jacket and a pair of light-up sneakers. She fumbled with the laces. Holden adjusted Autumn in his arms and looked down at the little girl struggling with her shoes. "It's okay. Just slip them on. We'll tie them in the car." She nodded and shoved her feet in. Together, they left the apartment. Holden carried Autumn down the metal staircase as carefully as he could. Faye followed close behind, clutching her lamb and her mother's phone. He settled Autumn in the back seat of the SUV, her head resting against the window. Faye climbed in beside her and immediately reached for her mother's hand. Holden got behind the wheel and pulled onto the street. He knew the fastest route to the nearest hospital, knew which ER had the shortest wait times this time of night. The rain picked up. Droplets streaked across the windshield. The city passed in a blur of streetlights and shadows. At the second red light, Faye's voice broke the silence. "You're not Uncle Ryan." Holden glanced at her in the rearview mirror. "No, I'm not. Mama talks about someone named Ryan sometimes. He lives downstairs. I'm not Ryan." Faye was quiet for a moment. Then, "Are you Holden?" "I am. Mama has your name in her phone, with a star." His hands tightened on the steering wheel. "Does she?" "Uh-huh. She doesn't call you, though. I asked her once why you had a star if she never called. She said sometimes you keep people close, even when they're far away." Holden's throat closed. He didn't know what to say to that. Didn't know how to process the idea that Autumn had kept his number all these years, that she'd thought about him, talked about him, that she'd had a child who looked about 5 years old. The timeline was starting to form in his head. Unwanted, undeniable, but he pushed it aside. Not now. Right now, Autumn needed help. "She's going to be okay," he said quietly, more to himself than to Faye. "You promise?" He met her eyes in the mirror, those hazel eyes that looked so familiar it hurt. "I promise." Faye held his gaze for a long moment. Then she nodded and turned back to her mother, resting her small hand on Autumn's arm. 10 minutes later, Holden pulled up to the emergency room entrance of Portland General. He didn't bother with parking, just threw the SUV into park right in front of the sliding glass doors. He lifted Autumn out of the back seat. Faye scrambled out after him, clutching her lamb. Holden strode through the doors without waiting for a nurse. He walked straight past the check-in desk, past a security guard who started to protest, and directly into the trauma bay. She collapsed. Head injury, possible concussion. She's been unconscious for over 20 minutes. She needs imaging, now. A nurse in blue scrubs rushed over, eyes wide. "Sir, you can't just..." "She needs help." His voice was calm but absolute. Now, something in his tone made the nurse stop arguing. She turned and called for a doctor. Within seconds, a team descended. They transferred Autumn onto a gurney, asked rapid-fire questions. Holden answered what he could. Faye stood beside him, silent and trembling. As they wheeled Autumn away, Faye grabbed Holden's hand. He looked down. Her fingers were so small, so cold. He squeezed gently. "Come on," he said. "Let's go sit down." The waiting room was nearly empty. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead. A television in the corner played the news on mute. The air smelled like disinfectant and burnt coffee. Holden led Faye to a row of plastic chairs near the window. She climbed up onto the seat beside him and pulled her knees to her chest. He noticed she was still holding her mother's phone, still clutching her lamb. "You did really good tonight, Faye," Holden said gently. "Your mama would be really proud of you. I was scared I called the wrong person. You didn't. You called exactly the right person." She looked up at him. "How do you know my mama?" Holden hesitated. How did he explain this to a 5-year-old? "I used to work with her. A long time ago. Did you like her?" His chest tightened. "Yeah, I did. A lot. Do you still like her?" He met her gaze. Honest, unflinching. "Yeah, I still do." Faye seemed to consider this. Then she said, "She doesn't have a lot of friends. Just Aunt Jessa, and Miss Trina from daycare, and Ryan downstairs, but he's old." Holden's heart ached. "What about you? You have friends?" "At daycare, but not a lot. Mama says that's okay. She says having one good friend is better than having 100 fake ones." "Your mama's right." They sat in silence for a moment. Then Faye yawned, a big, jaw-cracking yawn that made her eyes water. "You tired?" Holden asked. "A little. You can rest if you want. I'll wake you up when the doctor comes." Faye looked uncertain. "What if Mama needs me?" "Then I'll make sure you're there, I promise." She studied his face for a long moment. Then, seemingly satisfied, she leaned against his side and closed her eyes. Holden sat very still. He barely breathed. This little girl, this stranger, she trusted him, and he didn't even know if he deserved it. He looked down at her, at the way her dark curls fell across her face, the shape of her nose, the stubborn set of her chin, even in sleep, and the thought that had been forming in the back of his mind since the moment he saw her pushed its way to the front. She looks like me. No, he shut it down. It was impossible. Autumn would have told him. She wouldn't have kept something like that from him. Would she? He sat there in the fluorescent hum of the waiting room, a sleeping child leaning against him, and tried not to think about the fact that 5 years ago, Autumn had disappeared. 5 years ago, she'd left without a word, and now she had a daughter who was approximately 5 years old. He tried not to think about it, but the math was already done. 40 minutes later, a nurse in green scrubs approached. She had kind eyes and a calm demeanor. "Are you here with Autumn Vale?" Holden stood carefully, trying not to wake Faye. She stirred but didn't open her eyes. "Yes." "How is she?" "She's stable. Concussion, severe dehydration and exhaustion. No internal bleeding. She's lucky." Relief washed over him. "Can I see her?" "She's still unconscious, but yes. Room 12. Just down the hall." "Thank you." The nurse glanced at Faye. "Is this her daughter?" "Yes. She can come too if she wants." Holden looked down at Faye. She'd woken up at the sound of voices and was rubbing her eyes. "Did the doctor come?" she asked. "Yeah, sweetheart. Your mama's okay. Do you want to go see her?" Faye nodded quickly and slid off the chair. Holden led her down the hallway. Room 12 was at the end. The door was half open. Inside, Autumn lay in a hospital bed, and 4 in her hand, a bandage on her temple. Her eyes were closed. Her face was still too pale, but she was breathing, steady and strong. Faye ran to the side of the bed and grabbed her mother's hand. "Mama." No response. Faye's lip trembled. "Why won't she wake up?" "She's just resting," Holden said gently. "Her body needs time to heal, but she's okay." "She's okay." Faye climbed carefully onto the chair beside the bed and curled up, still holding her mother's hand. Holden stood in the corner of the room, watching them. A mother and daughter. A family. A family he wasn't part of, but maybe should have been. He stayed there, silent, watching over them. He didn't know what else to do. An hour passed. Then 2. Faye fell asleep in the chair, her head resting on the edge of the hospital bed. Holden didn't move, didn't leave. And then, just past 3 a.m., Autumn's eyes fluttered open. She blinked against the harsh fluorescent lights. Her hand moved instinctively to her head, touching the bandage. She winced. Then she turned her head and saw him. For a moment, neither of them moved. Neither of them spoke. Autumn's lips parted. Her eyes went wide, confused, disbelieving. Then she sat up too fast. The room spun. The four tugged at her hand. Holden stepped forward. Careful. She pressed a hand to her temple, breathing hard. What are you doing here? Her voice was hoarse, shaking. Faye called me. Autumn's eyes darted to her daughter, asleep in the chair, then back to him. What? You collapsed. She didn't know who to call. She found my number in your phone. Autumn's face went white, whiter than it already was. No, she wasn't supposed to. She was terrified, Autumn. She needed help. You shouldn't be here. Her voice cracked. Where else would I be? She looked away. Her jaw trembled. You should go. I'm not going anywhere. Holden, I haven't heard from you in 5 years. His voice was quiet, but edged with something raw. Something that had been building for half a decade. You disappeared. No explanation. No goodbye. I looked for you, for months, and now I find out you have a daughter. She's not your concern. The words hit him like a slap. He stepped closer. His voice dropped. Isn't she? Autumn's breath hitched. She shook her head. Don't. How old is she, Autumn? Stop. How old? Tears spilled down her cheeks. 5. She's 5. The room went very still. Holden stared at her. At the woman he'd once thought he knew. The woman who'd left without a word. She's mine, he said. It wasn't a question. Autumn closed her eyes. A sob broke free, and that was all the answer he needed. Before either of them could say another word, the door creaked open. Faye stirred in the chair. Her eyes blinked open. She saw her mother sitting up and her entire face lit up. Mama! She scrambled onto the bed and threw her arms around Autumn's neck. Autumn held her tight, so tight, like she was the only thing keeping her together. I'm okay, baby. I'm okay. You scared me. I know. I'm so sorry. Faye pulled back and looked at her mother's face. Then she turned to Holden. He came, just like I asked. He drove really fast and carried you and everything. Autumn's gaze lifted, met his. For a moment, they just looked at each other, 1,000 words passing between them in silence. Then Autumn whispered, Thank you. Holden didn't respond. Couldn't, because everything he thought he knew had just been ripped apart, and he had no idea how to put it back together. A nurse came in a few minutes later to check Autumn's vitals. She asked questions, took notes, explained the discharge process. Autumn answered mechanically. Her eyes kept drifting to Holden, then away, like she couldn't bear to hold his gaze. Faye sat between them on the hospital bed, oblivious to the tension, chattering about how brave she'd been. I remembered what you taught me, Mama. I found your phone and I called for help, and Holden came so fast. He promised you'd be okay, and you are. Autumn's voice was soft, strained. You did perfect, sweetheart. When the nurse left, silence settled over the room again. Finally, Holden spoke. They're discharging you in an hour. I'll drive you home. You don't have to. I'm driving you home. Autumn looked like she wanted to argue, but she was too exhausted, too overwhelmed. She just nodded. An hour later, Holden carried the discharge paperwork, while Autumn walked slowly beside him, one hand gripping Faye's. She was unsteady on her feet, pale, weak. He wanted to carry her, wanted to insist, but he didn't. He just stayed close. In the SUV, Faye fell asleep almost immediately in the back seat. Autumn sat in the passenger seat, staring out the window. The rain had stopped. The streets were slick and black under the streetlights. Holden drove in silence for the first few minutes. Then he couldn't hold it in anymore. Why didn't you tell me? Autumn didn't look at him. Because I couldn't. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. His hands tightened on the wheel. I had a right to know. You had a company to build. A life, a future. Her voice broke. I didn't fit into any of it. You didn't even give me a choice. She turned to him then, eyes red, face streaked with tears. Because I already knew what you'd choose. The words landed like a punch to the chest. Holden pulled over, right there, on the side of the road. He put the car in park and turned to face her. You think I would have chosen the company over you? Over her? I think you would have done the right thing. And I didn't want to be the right thing. I didn't want to be the obligation, the mistake. You were never a mistake. I was your assistant, Holden. Her voice cracked. You were untouchable, brilliant, focused, and I was nobody. When I found out I was pregnant, I panicked. I didn't know what to do. I thought about telling you so many times. But every time I tried, I'd remember the board meetings, the investors, the headlines, and I'd hear what they'd say about me. I wouldn't have cared what they said. You should have. Your reputation mattered. Your company mattered. I wasn't going to be the scandal that destroyed everything you built. So, you just left. So I protected her. Autumn looked back at Faye, asleep in the back seat. I gave her a quiet life, a safe life, away from the cameras and the gossip and the pressure. She doesn't know what it's like to be judged, to be whispered about. And I wanted to keep it that way. Holden's jaw clenched. She deserves a father. She has a mother who loves her. That's not enough. Autumn flinched. Holden ran a hand through his hair. His voice dropped. I'm not trying to hurt you, but you can't tell me I don't have a right to know my own daughter. I never said you didn't. Then why keep her from me? Because I was scared. The words burst out of her. Loud, raw. I was terrified, okay? Terrified you'd take her from me. Terrified you'd reject her. Terrified you'd resent me for ruining your life. So I made a choice. Maybe it was the wrong one, but it was the only one I could live with. Silence filled the car. Holden stared at her, at this woman who'd carried so much alone, who'd been so afraid she'd run. His anger didn't disappear, but it softened, just a little. I wouldn't have taken her from you, he said quietly. You don't know that. Yes, I do. Autumn looked at him, really looked, and for the first time, she saw something she hadn't expected. Certainty. He wasn't angry because he wanted to punish her. He was angry because he'd missed 5 years. 5 years of his daughter's life. And he couldn't get them back. Autumn's voice was barely a whisper. I'm sorry. Holden didn't respond right away. He just put the car back in drive and pulled onto the road. They drove the rest of the way in silence. When they pulled up outside her building, Holden turned off the engine. I'll help you get her inside. Autumn didn't argue. He lifted Faye carefully from the back seat. She stirred, but didn't wake, just tucked her head against his shoulder. Holden carried her up the metal staircase while Autumn unlocked the door. Inside, he followed Autumn to a small bedroom at the end of the hall. The walls were covered in drawings, dinosaurs, stars, rainbows. A bookshelf overflowed with library books. He laid Faye gently on the bed and pulled the blanket over her. She curled onto her side, clutching her lamb. For a moment, he just stood there, looking at her. His daughter. His daughter. Autumn stood in the doorway, watching him, her expression unreadable. When he finally turned and walked back into the living room, she followed. He paused at the door, turned to face her. What happens now? Autumn asked. Her voice was small, fragile. I don't know, Holden admitted, but I'm not walking away from her. Holden, I'm not asking for permission, Autumn. I'm telling you. She's my daughter, and I'm going to be part of her life. Autumn's eyes filled with tears again. You don't know what you're saying. I know exactly what I'm saying. He pulled a business card from his wallet and set it on the table. That's my direct line. When you're ready to talk, call me. He walked to the door, paused, looked back. I'm glad you're okay. And then he left. Autumn stood in the middle of her tiny living room, staring at the business card on the table. And then she collapsed onto the couch and cried. Holden sat in his car outside the building for a long time. He didn't start the engine, didn't drive away. He just sat there, thinking. 5 years. 5 years of birthdays he'd missed. First words, first steps, bedtime stories. 5 years of a life he didn't even know existed. And now that he did, everything had changed. He couldn't go back to pretending he didn't know. Couldn't go back to his carefully controlled world where everything made sense. Because nothing made sense anymore, except one thing. That little girl upstairs was his daughter, and he wasn't going to lose her. Not now, not ever. He pulled out his phone and sent a single text to his assistant. Clear my schedule for the next 2 weeks. I have something more important to handle. Then he started the car, and drove home. But he knew he wouldn't sleep. Not tonight. Maybe not for a long time. The next morning, Autumn woke to sunlight streaming through the thin curtains of her bedroom. Her head throbbed. Her body ached. The events of the previous night felt like a bad dream, until she saw the hospital discharge papers on her nightstand. It was real. All of it. She sat up slowly, wincing at the sharp pain in her temple. The bandage was still there. A reminder. From the other room, she heard Faye's voice, singing softly to herself. Autumn stood and walked slowly to the kitchen. Faye sat at the table, coloring in her dinosaur book. She looked up when her mother entered and smiled. "You're awake." "I am." Autumn's voice was hoarse. "How long have you been up?" "Not long. I made myself cereal. I didn't spill." "Good job, baby." Autumn poured herself a glass of water and sat down carefully at the table. Faye watched her with big, serious eyes. "Are you still sick?" "Just a little tired, but I'm okay." "Holden said you'd be okay. He promised." Autumn's chest tightened. "He did, huh?" "Uh-huh. He's really nice, Mama. And he drove super fast. And he carried you like you were a princess." Autumn didn't know what to say to that. Faye tilted her head. "Is he your friend?" Autumn hesitated. "He used to be. Can he be your friend again?" "I don't know, sweetheart. I think he wants to be. He was really worried about you." Autumn's throat closed. She reached over and smoothed Faye's curls. "Finish your coloring, okay? Mama needs to make a phone call." Faye nodded and went back to her dinosaurs. Autumn walked to the living room and picked up the business card Holden had left on the table. She stared at it for a long time. Then she picked up her phone and dialed. The phone rang 3 times before he picked up. Holden Cross. His voice was professional, clipped, like he was in the middle of something important. Autumn almost hung up. "It's me." Silence. Then his tone shifted. Softer. "Autumn, I'm calling because..." She paused, took a breath. "Because you're right. We need to talk." "Okay, but not over the phone, and not here. Faye doesn't know about you, about any of this, and I need to figure out how to tell her before anything else happens. I understand. Do you?" Her voice cracked. "Because I don't. I don't understand any of this. You were supposed to stay gone. You were supposed to stay in the past where it was safe." "Safe for who?" She didn't answer. Holden's voice was gentle but firm. "I'm not trying to blow up your life, Autumn, but you can't expect me to pretend I don't know, that she doesn't exist." "I know." Tears slipped down her cheeks. "I know, so let's talk. Face to face. Just the two of us." "When?" "Today. This afternoon. There's a coffee shop on Division. Sterling Grounds. Do you know it?" "I know it." 2 o'clock. Autumn closed her eyes. Okay. He paused. "How are you feeling? Your head?" The question caught her off guard. "It hurts." "But I'm okay. You need to rest." "Doctor's orders." "I will." Another pause. Then, quieter. "Thank you for calling." Autumn didn't know what to say to that. So she just hung up. She stood in the middle of her living room, phone still in her hand, and tried to steady her breathing. This was happening. After 5 years of running, hiding, protecting, it was all coming apart, and she didn't know if she was ready. At 1:45 p.m., Autumn stood in front of her closet, staring at the small collection of clothes hanging there. She didn't know what to wear to a conversation that could change everything. She settled on jeans and a sweater. Simple, comfortable. She wasn't trying to impress anyone. Faye sat on the bed behind her, swinging her legs. "Where are you going, Mama?" "Just to meet a friend, baby. Miss Trina from daycare is going to come sit with you for a little bit." "Is it Holden?" Autumn froze. "Why would you think that?" Faye shrugged. "Because you've been looking at his card all morning, and you look nervous. You only look nervous when something's important." Autumn turned to face her daughter. Sometimes she forgot how perceptive Faye was. "You're right. I am meeting Holden. Is he in trouble?" "No, sweetheart. We just need to talk about some grown-up stuff." "About me?" Autumn's breath caught. "What makes you say that?" "Because he kept looking at me last night, like he was trying to figure something out." Autumn sat down on the bed beside her daughter. "You're a very smart girl, you know that?" Faye grinned. "You tell me all the time." Autumn smoothed her curls. "Holden is. He's someone who cares about us. and I need to talk to him about how we're all going to be friends, okay? Okay. Faye paused. I like him, Mama. He's nice, and he has a really cool car. Autumn laughed despite herself. Yeah, he does. A knock came at the door. Miss Trina, right on time. Autumn kissed Faye's forehead. Be good. I'll be back in a couple hours. Okay, Mama. Autumn grabbed her coat and her keys and left before she could change her mind. Sterling Grounds was a small coffee shop tucked between a bookstore and a vintage clothing boutique. It had big windows, mismatched furniture, and the kind of atmosphere that felt both cozy and anonymous. Perfect for a conversation you didn't want anyone to overhear. Autumn arrived 5 minutes early. She ordered a tea she didn't really want and sat at a table in the back corner. Her hands shook as she wrapped them around the warm cup. At exactly 2 o'clock, the door opened. Holden walked in. He was dressed casually. Dark jeans, a gray sweater, no suit, no tie. He looked different, less like the untouchable CEO she remembered and more like a man who hadn't slept. His eyes found hers immediately. He walked over and sat down across from her without ordering anything. For a moment, they just looked at each other. Hi, Autumn said quietly. Hi. Silence. Then Holden spoke. I've been thinking about what you said last night, about being scared, about protecting her. Autumn nodded, waited. I get it. I do. You made a choice based on what you thought was right. But Autumn, you have to understand what this feels like for me. I'm trying. I have a daughter, a 5-year-old daughter, and I didn't know she existed until 12 hours ago. His voice was steady, but there was pain underneath, raw and undeniable. I missed everything. Her birth, her first word, her first step, birthdays, Christmases, everything. Tears welled in Autumn's eyes. I know. Do you? Because I don't think you do. He leaned forward. I loved you, Autumn, and when you left, it broke something in me. I told myself you had your reasons, that maybe I wasn't enough, maybe I'd missed something, and I tried to move on. But I never really did. Autumn's breath hitched. And now I find out you were carrying my child when you left, that you've been raising her alone all this time. And I don't know whether to be angry or heartbroken or grateful that she exists at all. A tear slipped down Autumn's cheek. I never wanted to hurt you, but you did. The words hung between them. Autumn wiped her eyes. You want to know the truth? The real reason I left? Yes. She took a shaky breath. I overheard a conversation, 2 of your board members. They were talking about you, about how focused you were, how nothing could distract you. And then one of them said, if he ever gets tangled up with some assistant or secretary, it'll tank everything we've built. Holden's jaw tightened. I was standing right outside the conference room, Autumn continued, and I realized that's what I was, a distraction, a liability. If anyone found out about us, about the baby, it would ruin you. So you left to protect me. I left to protect all of us. You, me, her. Autumn's voice broke. I didn't want her to grow up as the mistake that destroyed her father's career. I didn't want her to see herself that way. She's not a mistake. I know that, but the world wouldn't, and I couldn't. I couldn't do that to her. Holden sat back, ran a hand through his hair. You should have told me. Let me decide. You're right, I should have. But I was 27 and terrified, and I made the best choice I could with what I had. They sat in silence. The coffee shop hummed around them. Other people's conversations, the hiss of the espresso machine, the clink of mugs. Finally, Holden spoke. What's her favorite food? Autumn blinked. What? Faye. What's her favorite food? Mac and cheese, the kind with the powder cheese, not the fancy stuff. A small smile tugged at his lips. What about books? Does she like to read? She loves books, especially ones about space and dinosaurs. Does she have friends? A few. From daycare. She's a little shy. Takes her a while to warm up to people. Like you. Autumn's throat tightened. Yeah, like me. What does she want to be when she grows up? An astronaut. Or a paleontologist. It changes every week. Holden's smile grew. She sounds incredible. She is. Autumn's voice was thick with emotion. She's the best thing I've ever done. Holden met her eyes. I want to know her, really know her. Not as some stranger who showed up one night. As her father, I know. But I don't want to scare her or confuse her. So, I need you to tell me how to do this, because I have no idea. Autumn wiped her eyes, took a breath. We go slow. We let her get to know you first, as a friend, and when the time is right, we tell her the truth. How long? I don't know. A few weeks? A month? However long it takes for her to feel safe. Holden nodded. Okay. We do it your way. Relief flooded through her. Really? Really? But Autumn, I'm not disappearing. I'm going to be around, a lot. I'm going to show up, and I'm going to be part of her life, and yours, whether you like it or not. Despite everything, Autumn laughed. A small, broken sound. I don't think I have a choice. You don't. They sat there for another hour, talking, not about the past, not about the hurt, but about Faye, about who she was, what she loved, her quirks, her fears, her dreams. And for the first time in 5 years, Autumn didn't feel alone. When they finally left the coffee shop, Holden walked her to her car. Thank you, he said, for calling, for talking to me. Thank you for listening. He hesitated. Then, can I come by tomorrow to see her? Autumn's heart clenched, but she nodded. Yeah, come by around 4. She'll be home from daycare. I'll be there. He stepped back, watched as she got into her car. As she drove away, Autumn glanced in the rearview mirror. Holden was still standing there, watching, and something inside her shifted. Maybe, just maybe, this could work. The next afternoon, Faye sat at the kitchen table coloring when the knock came. She looked up. Is that Miss Trina? No, baby, it's Holden. Faye's face lit up. Really? Really? He wanted to come visit. Is that okay? Yes. Faye jumped down from her chair and ran to the door. Autumn followed, her heart pounding. She opened the door. Holden stood there, holding a small bag. Hi, he said. Hi, Autumn replied. Faye peeked around her mother's leg. Hi, Holden. He crouched down to her level. Hey, Faye, I brought you something. Her eyes went wide. You did? He reached into the bag and pulled out a book. The cover showed a T-Rex standing under a starry sky. I heard you like dinosaurs in space, so I thought, maybe you'd like this. Faye took the book with reverent hands. This is so cool. You think so? Yeah, thank you. She hugged the book to her chest and looked up at her mother. Can Holden stay for a while? Autumn met Holden's eyes. He looked hopeful, nervous. Yeah, she said softly. He can stay. Holden spent the next 2 hours sitting on the floor with Faye, reading the dinosaur book, building block towers, and answering approximately 1 million questions. Do you like dinosaurs? I do now. What's your favorite color? Blue. What's yours? Purple. Do you have a dog? No. Do you want one? So bad. But Mama says our apartment is too small. Maybe one day. Autumn watched from the couch, her chest tight with emotion. This was her daughter. And him, together. It felt surreal, terrifying, and somehow, right, when Holden finally stood to leave, Faye hugged his leg. Will you come back? He looked at Autumn. She nodded. Yeah, he said, ruffling Faye's hair. I'll come back. At the door, he paused. Thank you, he said quietly to Autumn. For what? For letting me in. She didn't know what to say, so she just nodded, and as he walked down the stairs, Faye tugged on her mother's hand. I really like him, Mama. Autumn's eyes filled with tears. Yeah, baby, me too. Over the next 2 weeks, Holden became a regular presence in their lives. He came by after work, brought dinner, fixed things around the apartment that had been broken for months. The leaky faucet, the loose cabinet door, the window that wouldn't close all the way. He read to Faye every night he was there, played with her, listened to her ramble about her day, and, slowly, he and Autumn started to rebuild something. Not what they'd had before, something new. One evening, after Faye had gone to bed, Holden and Autumn sat on the small balcony outside her apartment. The city stretched out below them, quiet, glowing. She asked me today if I was going to be her dad, Holden said quietly. Autumn's heart stopped. What did you say? I told her I'd like to be, if that was okay with her. And what did she say? Holden smiled. She said okay. And then she asked if that meant she could call me Dad. Tears spilled down Autumn's cheeks. I told her she could call me whatever she wanted, Holden continued, and she said she'd think about it. Autumn laughed through her tears. That sounds like her. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Holden spoke again. I know this is complicated. I know we're figuring it out as we go. But Autumn, I don't regret any of this. She looked at him. You don't? No, I wish I'd known sooner. I wish things had been different. But I'm grateful I know now, and I'm grateful for her, for you. Autumn's voice was barely a whisper. I never stopped loving you. Holden's breath caught. I tried, she continued. I tried so hard to move on, to forget, but I couldn't. And every time I looked at Faye, I saw you, and it hurt. But it also felt like I still had a piece of you with me. Holden reached over and took her hand. I never stopped either, he said. They sat there, hands intertwined, hearts healing. And for the first time in 5 years, Autumn felt hope. Real, tangible hope. That maybe, just maybe, they could be a family. 3 weeks after that first phone call, Faye asked the question Autumn had been dreading. They were eating breakfast. Pancakes. Holden had stopped to buy early to make them before heading to the office. He just left. The door had barely closed, and Faye looked up at her mother with those big knowing eyes. Mama, is Holden my dad? Autumn's fork clattered to her plate. She stared at her daughter. Faye didn't look upset, just curious. Why do you ask that, baby? Because he looks like me, and he's here all the time. And you look at him the way Princess Anna looks at Kristoff in Frozen. Autumn's heart pounded. How long have you been thinking about this? A while. Faye shrugged. I asked Miss Trina if it was possible to meet your dad when you're already 5, and she said sometimes dads don't know about their kids right away, but when they find out, they come. Is that what happened? Tears filled Autumn's eyes. She reached over and took Faye's small hand. Yeah, sweetheart, that's what happened. So, he ice my dad? Yes. Faye was quiet for a moment, processing. Then she said, okay. Autumn blinked. Okay. Yeah. I think he's a good dad. He reads good voices for the dinosaurs. And he fixes stuff. And he makes you smile. Autumn let out a choked laugh. He does, doesn't he? Faye nodded seriously. Can I call him Dad now, or do I have to wait? You can call him whatever you want, baby. Okay, I'm gonna call him Dad. And just like that, it was done. No drama, no confusion, just a little girl who'd found her father, and a father who'd found his way home. That night, when Holden came by, Faye ran to the door. Hi, Dad. Holden froze. His eyes went wide. He looked at Autumn. She smiled, nodded. He crouched down and pulled Faye into his arms, and he held her for a long, long time. Life changed after that night. Not all at once, not dramatically, but in small, significant ways that added up to something bigger than Autumn had ever imagined. Holden started showing up every morning before work. He'd bring fresh bagels from the bakery down the street, coffee for Autumn, chocolate milk for Faye. They'd eat breakfast together at the small kitchen table, Faye chattering about her dreams, Holden listening like every word was precious. Because to him, it was. He'd missed 5 years. He wasn't going to miss another moment. Autumn watched it happen, watched her daughter fall in love with her father, watched Holden transform from the controlled, untouchable CEO she'd once known into someone softer, someone present, someone real, and she felt herself falling all over again. It terrified her. One evening, 3 weeks after Faye had started calling him Dad, Autumn sat on the couch folding laundry while Holden and Faye built a blanket fort in the living room. It needs more structural support, Holden said seriously, adjusting a pillow. Faye giggled. It's a fort, Dad, not a building. All good forts have structural integrity. You're silly. I'm an engineer. There's a difference. Autumn smiled as she folded one of Faye's tiny shirts. This was what she'd been afraid to hope for. A family. A real one. Her phone buzzed on the coffee table. A text from her best friend Jessa. Call me, now. It's important. Autumn's stomach dropped. Jessa didn't text like that unless something was wrong. She excused herself to the bedroom and dialed. Jessa picked up on the first ring. Have you seen it? Seen what? Check your email. I'm forwarding you something. Autumn opened her laptop, waited. The email came through. She clicked it, and her blood went cold. It was a link to a gossip website. The headline read, Portland tech billionaire Holden Cross spotted with mystery woman and child. Secret family? Below it were photos. Grainy, taken from a distance. But unmistakable. Holden entering her apartment building. Holden carrying Faye on his shoulders at the park. Holden and Autumn sitting on a bench, talking, while Faye played nearby. Oh God, Autumn whispered. It gets worse, Jessa said. Read the article. Autumn scrolled down. Her hands shook. The article speculated wildly. Was this a secret love child? A hidden relationship? Why had Cross kept this family under wraps? Who was the mystery woman? One particularly vicious comment section was already filling up. Gold digger. Probably trapped him with a baby. She looks poor. Bet she's after his money. Autumn's chest tightened. She couldn't breathe. This was exactly what she'd been afraid of. Autumn, you still there? Yeah. Her voice was barely a whisper. What are you going to do? I don't know. She hung up, sat on the edge of her bed, stared at the photos. They'd been so careful, or so she thought, but clearly not careful enough. A knock came at the bedroom door. Autumn. Holden. She quickly closed the laptop. Yeah? He opened the door, took one look at her face and stepped inside. What's wrong? She didn't know how to say it, so she just opened the laptop and turned it toward him. Holden's jaw tightened as he read. His eyes scanned the photos, the headline, the comments. Then he closed the laptop. I'll handle it. How? Autumn's voice cracked. This is exactly what I was trying to avoid. Now everyone's going to know. Everyone's going to talk. Faye's going to hear things. Terrible things. No, she's not. You can't control what people say, Holden. No, but I can control the narrative. What does that even mean? He pulled out his phone. Made a call. Garrett, I need a press statement drafted tonight. I'm releasing it tomorrow morning. He paused. Listened. I don't care what the board thinks. This is happening. Another pause. Fine. Schedule an emergency meeting for 8 a.m. I'll be there. He hung up. Autumn stared at him. What are you doing? Taking control. Before this gets out of hand. It's already out of hand. Holden knelt in front of her. Took her hands. Listen to me. I'm not going to let them tear you apart. Or Faye. I'm going to release a statement. A real one. Not some vague PR nonsense. I'm going to tell the truth. The truth? That I have a daughter. That her mother is someone I deeply respect and care for. That this isn't a scandal. It's my family. Autumn's breath caught. Holden, your company, your reputation, means nothing compared to you and Faye. Tears spilled down her cheeks. You don't mean that? Yes, I do. He wiped her tears with his thumb. I spent 5 years building an empire, and you know what? I was miserable. Every single day. Because the one thing I wanted, I couldn't have. And now I have a second chance. And I'm not letting it go because some strangers on the internet have opinions. Autumn let out a shaky laugh. You're insane. Probably. He pulled her into his arms, held her tight, and for a moment she let herself believe it could be that simple. The next morning, Holden sat in the executive boardroom of Cross Industries. 12 board members stared at him from across the polished table. His CFO, Garrett Haynes, stood at the head, arms crossed. You want to release a personal statement acknowledging an illegitimate child in a relationship with a former employee. Do you understand how that sounds? Holden's voice was calm, deadly calm. She's not illegitimate. She's my daughter, and Autumn was never just an employee. The optics. I don't care about optics. You should. Our shareholders care. Our investors care. Then they can sell their shares. The room went silent. Garrett blinked. You're not serious. Completely serious. Holden stood, placed his hands on the table. I've spent a decade building this company. I've given everything to it. My time, my energy, my life. And I'm proud of what we've built. But I'm not sacrificing my family for stock prices. One of the older board members, Patricia Langford, spoke up. Holden, we're not asking you to sacrifice your family. We're asking you to be strategic. Manage the message. I am managing the message by telling the truth. The truth doesn't always play well in the media. I don't care. Garrett ran a hand over his face. If you do this, If you release this statement, the media is going to dig. They're going to find out everything. Where she lives, where the kid goes to school. Her entire life is going to be exposed. Holden's stomach twisted. He hadn't thought about that. Patricia leaned forward. We're not trying to be cruel, Holden. We're trying to protect you. And if you care about this woman and this child as much as you say you do, you'll protect them too. Holden sat down slowly. She was right. If he released the statement, the media would descend. They'd camp outside Autumn's apartment, follow Faye to daycare, dig into Autumn's past, turn their quiet life into a circus. And he'd be the one who caused it. What do you suggest? He asked quietly. Garrett exchanged a glance with Patricia. Let us release a neutral statement, Garrett said. Something vague. Acknowledge that you're spending time with family. No details, no names. Let the story die down naturally. And if it doesn't, then we reassess. Holden closed his eyes. Every instinct in him screamed to fight, to stand up and declare the truth. But this wasn't just about him anymore. It was about Faye, about Autumn, about protecting them. Fine, he said finally. Draft a neutral statement. Garrett nodded. I'll have it ready by noon. Holden stood and walked out without another word. In the parking garage, he sat in his car and dialed Autumn. She picked up on the second ring. How did it go? They talked me out of the full statement. Silence. Autumn. That's probably for the best. You, I don't know. Her voice was shaky. I don't want Faye's life to turn into a media circus. She's 5, Holden. She doesn't deserve that. I know. So what happens now? We lay low, let the story die. And we keep doing what we're doing. Hiding. Protecting. Autumn let out a bitter laugh. Isn't that how this whole mess started? Holden didn't have an answer for that. Later that day, Cross Industries released a brief statement. Holden Cross values his privacy and asks that the media respect his personal life. He remains committed to his work and his responsibilities. No further comments will be made at this time. It was corporate, sterile, safe, and it did absolutely nothing to stop the speculation. By the end of the week, 3 more gossip sites had picked up the story. Photos continued to surface. Theories multiplied. Autumn stopped taking Faye to the park, stopped going to her favorite coffee shop, started looking over her shoulder every time she left the apartment. She was living in fear again, and she hated it. One evening, after putting Faye to bed, she sat on the balcony and stared out at the city. Holden had texted earlier, asked if he could come by. She told him no, said she needed space. The truth was, she didn't know what she needed. She'd spent 5 years building a quiet, safe life for Faye, away from judgment, away from scrutiny, and now, in a matter of weeks, it was all falling apart. Her phone buzzed. Another text from Holden. I know you said you needed space, but I'm downstairs. If you want to talk, I'm here. If not, I'll leave. Autumn closed her eyes. She should tell him to go, should protect what little peace she had left. But instead, she texted back. Come up. 2 minutes later, there was a soft knock at the door. She opened it. Holden stood there, hands in his pockets, looking more uncertain than she'd ever seen him. Hi, he said. Hi. She stepped aside. He entered. They sat on the couch in silence for a long moment. Then Holden spoke. I'm sorry. Autumn looked at him. For what? For all of it. For not being there 5 years ago. For not fighting harder to find you. For bringing all this chaos into your life now. You didn't bring the chaos. I did. When I kept Faye from you, you were trying to protect her. And look where that got us. Autumn's voice broke. Now she's going to grow up with people whispering about her, calling her mother names, saying terrible things. Not if I can help it. You can't stop it, Holden. You can't control what people say. No. But I can control what Faye hears, what she believes about herself, about you, about us. Autumn shook her head. I don't know if that's enough. Holden turned to face her fully. What are you saying? I'm saying, maybe this was a mistake, you getting involved, us trying to be a family. Maybe it's too complicated. Maybe it's not fair to Faye. You don't mean that, don't I? Tears streamed down her face. She was happy before. We had a simple life, a safe life. And now I don't know what we have. Holden's jaw clenched. You have me, both of you. That's what you have. For how long? Until the media attention gets too bad? Until your board decides we're too much of a liability? That's never going to happen. You don't know that. Yes, I do. Holden's voice was fierce. Because I'm not walking away. Not from you. Not from Faye. Not ever. Holden, I love you. The words hung in the air. Autumn froze. Holden's eyes were intense, unwavering. I've loved you since the day you organized my entire filing system by color and told me it was more efficient. I loved you when you'd leave notes on my desk reminding me to eat. I loved you when you disappeared and I didn't know why. And I love you now, even with all the complications and the mess and the fear. I love you, and I love our daughter, and I'm not giving up on this family. Autumn couldn't breathe. Say something, Holden whispered. I'm terrified. So am I. What if we can't protect her? Then we'll face it together. Autumn looked at him, at this man who'd driven across the city in the middle of the night because a scared little girl called for help, who'd sat in hospital waiting rooms and learned to build blanket forts and read dinosaur books with silly voices, who'd chosen them over and over. I love you too, she whispered. Holden's breath caught. And then he kissed her, soft at first, then deeper, like he was trying to pour 5 years of longing into a single moment. When they finally pulled apart, Autumn was crying. We're going to figure this out, Holden said. I promise. Autumn nodded, believed him, because what other choice did she have? If you're still with me, I need you to know something. This story isn't just entertainment. It's a reminder that love, real love, doesn't run when things get hard. It stays. It fights. It chooses you, even when the world is watching. If that resonates with you, hit that like button. Drop a comment telling me about a time someone chose you when it wasn't easy. Let's build a community of people who believe in real love. And subscribe, because we're not done yet. This story still has some twists you won't see coming. 2 weeks later, the media storm hadn't died down. If anything, it had gotten worse. Someone had dug up Autumn's old employment records, confirmed she'd worked for Cross Industries 5 years ago. The timeline was too convenient to ignore. The headlines shifted. Cross Industries CEO's secret baby mama was former employee. Did Holden Cross hide love child to avoid scandal? Mystery woman identified. Autumn Vale, former executive assistant. Autumn's name was everywhere. Her photo, her address, where Faye went to daycare, everything. She stopped leaving the apartment, started having groceries delivered, kept Faye home from daycare. Holden hired security, 2 discreet guards who monitored the building, made sure no one harassed them. But the damage was done. Autumn's quiet life was gone, and she didn't know how to get it back. One afternoon, while Faye napped, Autumn sat at the kitchen table scrolling through her phone. She shouldn't have. She knew better, but she couldn't stop herself. Comment after comment. She baby-trapped him. Probably got pregnant on purpose. Gold digger. He should get a paternity test. Her vision blurred. Her chest tightened. A panic attack. She recognized the signs. She stood quickly, tried to breathe. Couldn't. The room spun. And then strong hands were on her shoulders. Autumn, look at me. Holden. When had he gotten here? Breathe with me. In, out, in, out. She tried. Failed. Tried again. Slowly, the room stopped spinning. There you go. You're okay. I've got you. Autumn collapsed against him, sobbed into his chest. I can't do this. I can't. It's too much. Yes, you can. They hate me. They don't know you. They think I'm a terrible person. They're wrong. She pulled back, looked up at him with red, swollen eyes. How did you even know to come? You didn't answer my texts. I got worried. She let out a broken laugh. So you just showed up? I always show up. Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. Holden wiped them away gently. I have an idea, he said quietly. What? Move in with me. Autumn blinked. What? You and Faye. Move into my place. It's secure, private. No one can get to you there, and you won't have to deal with this anymore. Holden, we can't just move in with you. Why not? Because that's a huge step. So we've only been, whatever this is, for a few weeks. Autumn, we have a 5-year-old daughter together. I think we're past worrying about moving too fast. She opened her mouth, closed it. He had a point. What about Faye? She asked. This is the only home she's ever known. We'll make it an adventure. Kids love adventures. I don't know. Holden took her hands. I'm not asking you to marry me, yet. He smiled softly. I'm just asking you to let me take care of you, both of you. Let me give you a safe place where you don't have to be afraid. Autumn's throat tightened. You've been doing this alone for 5 years, Holden continued. Let me help, please. She looked around the small apartment, the place where she'd built a life, raised her daughter, survived. And then she thought about the reporters outside, the photos, the comments, the fear. Okay, she whispered. Holden's eyes widened. Yeah? We'll move in with you. He pulled her into his arms and held her so tight she could barely breathe. You won't regret this. I hope not. 3 days later, Holden's SUV was packed with boxes. Not many. Autumn didn't have much. Faye sat in the back seat, clutching her stuffed lamb, eyes wide with excitement. We're really going to live in Dad's big house? Autumn smiled despite her nerves. Yeah, baby, we really are. Does it have a backyard? It does. Can we get a dog? Holden laughed from the driver's seat. We'll talk about it. Faye grinned. As they pulled away from the apartment building, Autumn looked back one last time. 5 years of memories, of struggle, of survival. And now, something new. She reached over and took Holden's hand. He squeezed gently. You okay? He asked. Ask me later. Holden's penthouse was nothing like Autumn's apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the river, sleek modern furniture, a kitchen that looked like it belonged in a magazine, 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a study, space, so much space. Faye ran through the rooms, squealing with delight. Mama, there's a bathtub big enough to swim in. Autumn couldn't help but smile. Holden came up beside her, carrying a box. What do you think? I think it's a lot, too much. I don't know yet. He set the box down and turned to her. I had the guest room set up for Faye, but if you want her closer to you, we can rearrange. No, the guest room is fine. She paused. Where am I sleeping? Holden's expression softened. Wherever you want. There's another guest room, or, he hesitated. Or you could stay with me. Autumn's heart pounded. Holden, no pressure. I want you to know the option's there. She looked at him, at this man who'd turned his entire life upside down for her. Can I think about it? Of course, that night, after Faye was tucked into her new bed, after the boxes were unpacked, after the chaos had settled, Autumn stood in the living room, staring out at the city lights. Holden came up behind her. Can't sleep. Too much on my mind. He stood beside her, close but not touching. Want to talk about it? I keep thinking. What if this doesn't work? What if we're making a mistake? Then we'll figure it out. Together. You make it sound so simple. It is simple. I love you. You love me. We have a daughter. Everything else is just details. Autumn laughed softly. I don't think your board would agree. I don't care what the board thinks. She turned to face him. You keep saying that, but eventually. You're going to have to care. This is your company, your legacy. You're my legacy. His voice was fierce. You and Faye. Not some corporation, not stock prices or quarterly reports. You. Tears filled Autumn's eyes. I don't deserve you. Yes, you do. He cupped her face in his hands. You've been fighting alone for so long. Let me fight with you. Let me be your partner. In all of it. Autumn's voice was barely a whisper. I'm scared. I know. So am I. But I'd rather be scared with you than safe without you. And then he kissed her. Slow, deep, full of promise. When they finally pulled apart, Autumn rested her forehead against his. I'll stay with you, she whispered. In your room. If the offer's still open, Holden's breath caught. It is. It always will be. That night, for the first time in 5 years, Autumn didn't sleep alone. And she didn't have nightmares. She just rested. The next few weeks were an adjustment. Faye loved the new house. Loved having her dad around all the time. Loved the big backyard and the fancy bathtub and the fact that Holden made pancakes that were somehow better than Mama's. Autumn struggled more. She wasn't used to being taken care of, wasn't used to someone else cooking dinner or doing laundry or handling the things she'd always handled alone. But slowly, she started to relax, started to let Holden in, not just into her life, but into her heart. One evening, Holden came home from work to find Autumn in the kitchen, attempting to make his favorite meal, chicken parmesan. It wasn't going well. "Need help?" he asked, trying not to laugh at the flower in her hair. I thought I could figure it out. Clearly I was wrong. He came up behind her and wrapped his arms around her waist. "We can order takeout. I wanted to do something nice for you. You're here. That's nice enough." She turned in his arms. "You really mean that, don't you?" Every word. She kissed him, soft and sweet. And for the first time, she believed it. Believed that maybe, just maybe, she was enough. But not everything was perfect. The media attention hadn't completely died down. It had just shifted. Now the focus was on where Autumn and Faye had gone. Speculation ran wild. Had they left the city? Had Holden paid them off? Was the relationship over before it began? Holden's PR team advised continued silence. But Holden was getting tired of hiding. One night, after Faye was asleep, he brought it up. "I want to do a family photo." Autumn looked up from her book. "What?" "A photo, the three of us. And I want to release it, officially." "Holden, we talked about this." "I know, but I'm tired of hiding, tired of letting people speculate. I want them to know this is my family, and I'm proud of it." Autumn set her book down. "And what happens after? When the media descends again? We deal with it, together." "You keep saying that because it's true." She was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "What kind of photo?" Holden's eyes lit up. "Just us, casual, happy, real. No staged PR nonsense?" "No staged PR nonsense." Autumn sighed. "Okay, but I get to approve it before it goes out. Deal." The photo was taken the following weekend, not by a professional photographer, by Holden's assistant, who came over with a good camera and a gentle demeanor that put Faye at ease. They sat on the couch, Holden in the middle, Autumn on one side, Faye on his lap. Faye wore her favorite purple dress. Autumn wore jeans and a sweater. Holden wore a casual button-down. They looked like a family. The assistant took maybe 20 photos. But there was one where Faye was laughing at something Holden said, where Autumn was looking at them with pure love in her eyes, where Holden looked complete. That was the one. Holden showed it to Autumn that night. "What do you think?" She stared at it, at the three of them, together. "We look happy," she said softly. "We are happy. Yeah, we are. So, can I post it?" Autumn took a deep breath, then nodded. "Post it." The next morning, Holden released the photo on his personal social media. The caption was simple: "My family, my heart, my everything." Within an hour, it had gone viral. The comments section exploded, but this time, most of them were different. "This is beautiful. You can see how much he loves them. That little girl is adorable. Good for him for choosing love." Of course, there were still negative comments. There always would be. But they were drowned out by the positive ones, by people who saw what Holden saw. A family. Imperfect. Real. Worth fighting for. Autumn cried when she read the comments. Not sad tears. Happy ones. "I can't believe it," she said. Holden pulled her close. "Believe it. People aren't as cruel as you think, most of them. They just want to see love win. And did it? Win?" "Yeah." He kissed her forehead. "It did." That afternoon, Holden got a call from Garrett. "The board wants to meet." "Of course they do." "Holden. They're not happy. I don't care. You need to care. They're talking about a vote of no confidence." Holden's jaw tightened. "Let them vote. You could lose your position as CEO. Then I lose it." Silence on the other end. Then Garrett said quietly, "You really mean that?" "I do. They're not going to understand. They don't have to. This is my choice, my life, and I'm done letting other people dictate it." Another pause. Then Garrett laughed. A real, genuine laugh. "You know what? Good for you. You're not mad." "Mad? I'm impressed. I've worked with you for 8 years, and this is the first time I've seen you actually." Happy? Holden smiled. Thanks, Garrett. Don't thank me yet. You still have to face the board tomorrow. I'll be ready. The board meeting was exactly as tense as Holden expected. 12 stone-faced executives staring him down. Patricia Langford spoke first. That photo was ill-advised. I disagree. You've made your personal life a spectacle. I've claimed my family publicly. There's a difference. The shareholders are concerned. The shareholders will survive. One of the younger board members, Marcus Chen, spoke up. Actually, they're thriving. Everyone turned to look at him. Marcus pulled up a tablet. Since the photo was posted, our stock has gone up 3%. Public sentiment toward the company has improved. People like seeing a CEO who's human, who has a family, who isn't just a corporate robot. Patricia frowned. That's unexpected, but true. Marcus looked at Holden. Turns out, authenticity sells. Holden fought back a smile. Patricia sat back, looked around the table. Well, I suppose if the numbers support it, they do. Marcus confirmed. The tension in the room eased. Garrett leaned over and whispered, "Looks like love wins again." Holden smiled. Yeah, it did. Life settled into a new rhythm after that. Holden still worked, but he left the office at 5 every day. No exceptions. Dinner was sacred. Family time was sacred. Autumn started taking freelance design projects again. Working from home. Building her career back up on her terms. Faye started at a new school, a private one with better security. She made friends, thrived, and slowly, the media attention faded, because there was no scandal, no drama, just a family, living their life. One evening, 6 months after the photo, Holden came home with a small box in his pocket. His heart pounded as he walked through the door. Faye ran to greet him like always. "Dad, guess what I learned today?" "What?" "How to spell Tyrannosaurus." "That's amazing. Can you spell it for me?" She did. Perfectly. He high-fived her. Autumn appeared from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a towel. "Dinner's almost ready." "Perfect." He kissed her. "Can we talk after Faye goes to bed?" She raised an eyebrow. "That sounds ominous." "It's not. I promise. After dinner. After Faye was bathed and read to and tucked in. After the dishes were done and the house was quiet." Holden led Autumn out to the balcony. The city sparkled below them. "What's this about?" Autumn asked. Holden took her hands. "I've been thinking about us, about our family, about the future." "Okay." He took a breath. 5 years ago, you left because you thought I'd choose my career over you, over Faye. And I hate that you ever believed that, but I understand why you did." Autumn's eyes filled with tears. "I want you to know," Holden continued, "that every single day since I found out about Faye, since I found you again, I've chosen you, both of you, over everything else, and I'm going to keep choosing you. For the rest of my life." He dropped to one knee. Autumn gasped. He pulled out the small box. "Autumn Vale. You're the strongest, bravest, most incredible woman I've ever known. You raised an amazing daughter. You survived when everything was against you, and you gave me a second chance I didn't deserve. I love you. I love Faye, and I want to spend the rest of my life proving to you that you made the right choice in letting me in." He opened the box. Inside was a simple, beautiful ring. "Will you marry me?" Autumn was crying, full-on sobbing. "Yes," she choked out. "Yes, yes, yes." Holden stood and slid the ring on her finger. And then he kissed her, deep and long and full of promise. When they finally pulled apart, they were both crying. "I can't believe this is real," Autumn whispered. "It's real. We're real. I love you. I love you too." They stood there, holding each other, looking out at the city that had brought them back together. And, for the first time, Autumn wasn't afraid. She was home. The next morning, Faye noticed the ring immediately. "Mama, your ring is so pretty." Autumn smiled. "You like it?" "I love it." "Where did you get it?" Autumn looked at Holden. He knelt down to Faye's level. "I gave it to your mama," he said gently, "because I asked her to marry me." Faye's eyes went wide. "You did?" "I did." "And she said yes." Faye looked between them. "So, you're going to be married, Like in movies? Yeah, baby, Autumn said. Like in movies. Faye thought about this for exactly 2 seconds. Then she threw her arms around both of them. This is the best day ever. Holden laughed and pulled them both close. Yeah. It really is. The wedding was small. Just close friends and family, held in the backyard of Holden's. Their home. Faye was the flower girl. She took her job very seriously. Autumn wore a simple white dress. No veil, no fuss. Just her, and Holden couldn't take his eyes off her. When she walked down the aisle, when she took his hands, when she said I do, he felt something he'd been missing for years. Wholeness. They exchanged vows they'd written themselves. Autumn's were simple. I spent 5 years running because I was afraid of being judged, afraid of being hurt, afraid of hoping for something I didn't think I deserved. But you taught me that love isn't about fear, it's about courage. And I choose to be courageous. I choose you, today and every day. Holden's were just as simple. I built an empire thinking that's what would make me happy. But I was wrong. You make me happy. Faye makes me happy. This, us, this is everything. And I promise to choose you, to fight for you, to love you, no matter what. There wasn't a dry eye in the crowd. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, Holden kissed Autumn like it was the first time and the last time all at once, and Faye cheered louder than anyone. At the reception, Holden gave a speech. Most of you know my story, how I built Cross Industries from the ground up, how I worked 80-hour weeks, how I sacrificed everything for success. He paused. But what you might not know is that I was miserable. I had everything I thought I wanted, and none of it mattered, because I didn't have her. He looked at Autumn. 5 years ago she left, and I didn't understand why. I was angry, hurt, lost, but now I know. She left because she loved me, because she wanted to protect me. And our daughter, his voice broke. And that kind of love, that selfless, sacrificial love, that's the real success. Not money, not power. Love. He raised his glass. So here's to second chances, to courage, to family, and to the woman who taught me what really matters. Everyone raised their glasses. To Autumn. To Autumn. Autumn was crying again. Holden walked over and pulled her to her feet. Dance with me. There's no music. So, she laughed and let him lead her to the middle of the backyard. And they danced, in silence, under the stars, just the two of them, until Faye ran over and insisted on joining. And then it was the three of them. A family. Finally. Completely. If this story has touched you, I need you to do something for me. Hit that like button. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Someone who's afraid to hope. Someone who thinks second chances don't exist. Someone who needs to know that love, real love, is worth fighting for. Drop a comment and tell me what this story meant to you. And subscribe, because I have more stories like this. Stories about courage, about healing, about love that refuses to give up. 1 year later, Faye was 6 now, confident, happy, thriving. She had friends, hobbies, a dog named Rex who she absolutely adored. Autumn's design business had taken off. She was working with major clients, making a name for herself. And Holden had stepped back from day-to-day operations at Cross Industries. He was still CEO, still involved, but he'd learned to delegate, to trust his team, to prioritize what mattered. One evening, the three of them sat on the couch. Faye wedged between her parents, Rex at their feet. They were watching a movie, some animated thing about dinosaurs in space, Faye's current obsession. Halfway through, she turned to Holden. Dad? Yeah, sweetheart. Do you ever wish things were different? Like, that you knew about me from the beginning? Holden's chest tightened. He looked at Autumn. She was watching him, waiting. He turned back to Faye. Honestly? Yeah. Sometimes I wish I'd been there from the start. For your first steps, your first words, all of it. Faye nodded seriously. But, Holden continued, I don't regret how things happened, because everything, all the hard stuff, it brought us here, to this, and I wouldn't trade this for anything. Faye smiled. Me neither. She turned back to the movie. Holden reached over and took Autumn's hand. She squeezed, and they sat there, together, watching dinosaurs float through space. A family built not on perfection, but on second chances, on courage, on love. Later that night, after Faye was asleep, Holden and Autumn stood on the balcony. Their spot. Do you ever regret it? Holden asked quietly. Telling me, letting me in. Autumn looked at him. Not even for a second. Even with all the chaos, the media, the scrutiny. Even with all of that, she leaned her head on his shoulder. You know what I regret? What? Waiting so long. I should have told you from the beginning. Should have trusted you. You were protecting her. I was protecting myself. From getting hurt. From being rejected. And in doing that, I hurt all of us. Holden turned to face her. We can't change the past, but we have the future. And I plan to make every day count. Autumn smiled. Me too. He kissed her forehead. I love you. I love you too. They stood there. In the quiet. In the peace. Two people who'd been broken. And were now whole. This is where our story ends. But it's also where it begins. Because real love isn't about perfect timing or ideal circumstances. It's about showing up. Even when it's hard. Even when you're scared. Even when the world is watching. Holden and Autumn's story teaches us that second chances are real. That courage is stronger than fear. That family isn't always about biology. It's about choice. It's about choosing each other. Every single day. If you've stayed with me until the end, thank you. Truly. Stories like this remind us what matters. They remind us to be brave. To hope. To love without holding back. I'm Dr. Phillips, and I believe in love. The messy kind. The complicated kind. The kind that doesn't give up. If you believe in it too, do me a favor. Hit that like button one more time. Leave a comment telling me what moment in this story hit you the hardest. Was it the phone call? The revelation? The proposal? I want to know. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Someone who's given up on love. Someone who thinks they've missed their chance. Someone who needs to know that it's never too late. And subscribe to Love and Twilights with Dr. Phillips. Because every single day, I'm bringing you stories that will make you feel. That will remind you what it means to be human. To struggle. To overcome. To love. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for believing that stories like this matter. Because they do. You matter. Your story matters. And, somewhere out there, someone is waiting to choose you. Just like Holden chose Autumn. Just like Autumn chose courage. Just like Faye chose to make that call. One moment, one choice, one chance can change everything. I'll see you in the next story. Until then, choose love. Always choose love.